we're living in San Francisco, and it's a
Yep.
very, very, very. It can be dirty sometimes, and
Very.
and yeah, we have problem. There's a homeless people
Yeah.
problem, and the local government should try to solve it somehow. But and so taking all those points into account, where do you see yourself living in the near future?
Oh
It,
man, that's a good question.
yeah.
Well, so let me tell you, when I first came to San Francisco, so my dream since I was like 10 years old was to live in California,
Hmm.
right? And also I didn't know anything about San Francisco. I love Los Angeles just because of Hollywood, of whatever I saw in the movies,
Yeah.
and then of course because our school and everything, San Francisco. When I first came here, it was a culture shock.
It was a
It was a
what?
really big a culture shock,
Okay.
and it was a really big culture shock because of what you just mentioned. The homelessness, the dirt in the streets, the syringes, the feces, the I don't know anything else, the nudity, anything in this city. But I think in the near future, man, I don't know. I think I'm gonna probably be in San Francisco for another year or two, or at least let's say I hope I'm here for another year or two,
Hmm.
just because the way I see it, we as students graduating soon, I'd rather not move somewhere right away
Hmm.
because I already know we've already established a network here. We already know some people here. We already have things kind of laid out here.
Yeah.
So rather build on those, do something for a year or two here with those connections, and then if you're willing to move and you really see that taxes might be a problem or that you don't really like the city anymore because
This Texas being a problem? What?
taxes like
Oh,
taxes everything not taxes.
taxes. Okay. I
Yeah.
thought the state. I was like,
No, no taxes.
oh.
Uh, so I think then you kind of look into and be like, all right, I might want to move somewhere. But as you said, for the near future, if we're talking 1 year, two, then yes, I do kind of see myself in San Francisco. But after that, I really don't. I honestly just see myself in the US for another couple of years, and then I don't know. It's
Yeah, an unknown future.
yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, of course.
same for me. I think, you know, San Francisco is what drives me away from San Francisco is the living
Yeah.
costs. That's the
Yep.
yeah, that's what it is. So, but then I also know that if you go down to, San Jose or Santa Clara and stuff, that's expensive too. But the weather is nicer there. I think it's kind of warmer. So, and the vibes are cool too.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, you have Google here, Facebook there.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's a whole different thing though. It's what do you call it? I think there's always a trade-off, right? If
Yeah.
you really think about it, because sure you can come to San Francisco. Let's take an example. I don't know, San Francisco and New York, probably, because
Hmm.
let's just give those two cities, right? You come to San Francisco, yes, it's expensive. You're getting paid a lot of money for whatever
Yeah,
you're doing in a way. I mean, not
that's true.
whatever you're doing, because obviously a minimum wage job is just gonna give you that much in
Hmm.
terms of where you can live or what you can afford doing. Let's say you're a software engineer, right? What San Francisco runs upon software engineers and tech. Let's say you're getting paid probably 300K a year. It might be good money for you. You're probably 25, 26, making 300K. You're probably still single or dating somebody. It might be a good thing. Then, if we take the same job and we move to New York, probably you're getting paid less.
You
And
think so?
now, well, yeah, I believe so. I mean, I lived in New York for a year. It's not that back then I was still in high school. It's not that I know much of the job market back then
Yeah.
because us as internationals, it's too tough to get jobs in high school or none of that. So,
Hmm.
but you'll get paid proportionally to what the market is in terms of uh, are they looking to hire more? Are they looking to
Hmm.
hire less of these people? The rent price. There's always a trade-off, right? You can live in a highly expensive area and complain about the cost of living, but unless you're making really good money, probably the cost of living doesn't even bother you or anything else.
And
But if you're making okay money, you might really be bothered by that because you rather say, I rather move somewhere where it's a bit cheaper and pay less taxes or anything else. Probably live a bit better off and have more to save.
Yeah, and I mean, you can also live with roommates.
Other people, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a trend here. If you're not living with your plus one, uh,
Yeah.
yeah, you get roommates, you get other people to live with, and
But to be honest, I don't know how, I know about you, but we as coming from, European countries, whatever.
yeah,
I don't know how I feel about being, 25, 26, living with three other roommates.
yeah.
Like when I think of that, I'm like, oh man, like I don't really want to live with three other people. I'm 25, it's like that's the point where I kind of feel you're really trying to figure out life because you're 5 years close to being 30. And what is your plan, right? Are you trying to get married? Are you trying to get in a relationship? Are you trying to move somewhere a bit closer to your family because probably of situations back home or anything? So, and then living with two, three other, four other people to make the rent cheaper, I don't know. To me, that doesn't make too much sense. I don't know how you feel about it though, but I feel like where we come from as Europeans, that you don't see that too often. I think that kind of makes us be feel a bit strange about living with a lot of roommates when a certain age comes.
It could be, but I have my priorities, and that's probably different from most people. If, for example, my startup projects are like my babies, so if I need money for a software or Instagram ads or something, I would rather skip a meal of the day and spend the money on the ads.
Well, I guess that's a
And
trade-off of being an entrepreneur, no?
yeah, it comes to your priorities. It depends on
Yeah,
what
hundred
you want to
percent,
spend
hundred
money
percent.
on.
But
Hmm.
let me tell you something. I don't like the phrase of a business being called as my baby. I
No.
really don't like that. I don't like it because I think I've read this somewhere. I think I've read it on Peter Thiel's book. I'm not too sure. I don't remember. So if I'm quoting him and anybody knows, sorry if I'm plagiarizing. But I think I've read it there. I'm not too sure now. It's been many years since I read that book. Not many years, but a couple of years. Where I think he says that never call your business a baby because you're not trying. Like if it was you, if you have a baby, your actual biological baby, you don't sell it baby, but you'd sell a business.
Yeah.
So and when you think of that, you're like, true, because I think that's what some people also in a way I guess get wrong. And I'll take a few examples, not a few examples, but I'm a big fan of watching Shark Tank, right?
Hmm.
And there, of course, you have some really good businesses who come in there, some businesses who are not good, or the ideas are just horribly, even though the entrepreneur has too much enthusiasm. I think there is a problem that if you really get so emotionally attached to your business, you're not going to see what you're doing wrong because you believe so much in the idea that all you care about is that, all right, sure, I'm going to push for this because I know this is going to work at some point, but then actually that might never work because your product is just horrible. Like, I don't want to say, I want to make an example of what I saw recently. I'm not saying the product is horrible, but for me, I would never buy that no matter what. So there's a product, a couple comes in the tank, I remember, and they have this product that was kind of like cookies or like cookie bars that it was called his and hers or something, I don't remember well,
Okay.
where it arouses the female and the male and then they can have better sex. And now they've been in business for I think a year or two and they had only like $5,000 worth of sales. And they're like, we're gonna keep fighting, we're gonna keep doing that, mortgage their house, they've done this. And in my head, I'm like, man, you've had only $5,000 of sales for a product that probably most people might not need, right? Other than you being so attached because you so believe in it, take a step back and really understand what the business is doing. You're
Hmm.
losing money, you're wasting money, you've
Hmm.
mortgaged your house. If you can't pay that, you're out. Where are you gonna live? In the streets, in a car? Sure, entrepreneurs are willing to do that, but I say rather you should be willing to do it if there's a good product and you really know there's a good product, but the market is still not ready for it. Other than like you knowing that the market doesn't even know or want this product, but you
Hmm.
believing the product is amazing, where it might be nonsense. So
Yeah.
I think a lot of entrepreneurs And what I've seen, and I know a few of them really get attached to, businesses that they start creating.
Yeah.
And then it fails, it doesn't. It's like, oh my God, I could have done this better, could have done it better. But if you get too emotionally attached to something, I feel like it's going to be very hard for you to look at it on different angles from really trying to understand what might
Yeah.
be wrong.
It's becoming blind to reality.
Yes,
And yeah. And you also need to know when to, cut it off. When to
100%.
end it.
100%.
Yeah. Because there's a
Listen, I
point.
mean,
Yeah, there's a point
I
where
think,
you
yeah,
cannot spend more money, or if you
of
do,
course,
it just, yeah,
of
it's.
course.
Hmm.
Exactly. And you're making the perfect point because what I was going to say is along your lines, you would definitely have to know when to stop because you shouldn't be burning more cash.
Hmm.
If you see that you've reached that tipping point where you start with 2 grand and you made 100 grand, whatever span of years you did in two, in three, one in 6 months, and then you see that things are not being adapted to quickly, and you probably see trends are shifting away from whatever product or market you have or industry you have. Move on. Just, just sell it, liquidate it, file bankruptcy or anything, whatever it has to be. Like
Yeah.
move on. Don't stay attached there for too long because staying in the sea for too long, the waves can take over and you can drown. So like you gotta know when to step out for sure. Let's you made the right point. You gotta really know when to step out.
Good, good. Um, yeah, so, our, kind of last topic here would be, do you think it's possible to start, businesses in other parts, like other than Silicon Valley? Or because,
Of course.
yeah, because I did my research, and like right now, or like back in 2017, around 50% of the world's um, VC's funding is being made in
Yeah.
Silicon Valley, is given in Silicon Valley, and the rest is the rest of the world. So that's a lot. That's
It's a lot
fifty
of money.
percent. Yeah, and if you, us as Europeans, if, for example, London is the startup hub of Europe, I'd say,
Hmm.
but even there, you don't see these amounts of money being invested in startups
Yeah.
that even don't have or are making profit. So I don't know. I think I yeah, the further away you move from Silicon Valley, the harder it becomes to becoming successful. Or even, there's a lot of startups in Europe as well, but most of them get acquired by companies based in Silicon
Yeah.
Valley too. So, even if the funding doesn't come from there, it ends being there too. Well, here, yeah. So yeah, what do you think?
No, I mean, I feel like everything in Silicon Valley moves too fast. That's why there's a lot of money being poured into startups, no matter how good and bad. I think Silicon Valley has that, history of the tech capital of the world, where HP came, where Dell came, where well Dell is actually based in Austin, but where Apple came, Facebook and all those guys. Yeah, Facebook started in Boston, but where did it move? Moves to Silicon Valley, right?
Mhm.
All these things. I feel like just because the first companies who moved here in the I'm not sure was it 1980s or mid
Oof,
90s
I don't know.
something I don't remember well. Um, they kind of attracted that, you know, let's say the bright minds, right,
Yeah.
of the computer game, of the tech game. And for anybody wanting to do something tech, it was easier to find that human capital, for example, in Silicon Valley. I think that's where kind of the pride comes in, where the benefits of being here. Because I mean, come on, if you're trying to start a tech company and you need to build a code, but you're not a coder, probably one in three people in the street in San Francisco or Silicon Valley is a coder or knows a couple of code programmers
Yep.
languages,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So that's where the benefit is. But I do not believe that if you're away from Silicon Valley, you it is hard to start a business. Now that doesn't go without saying that depending which country you are in, right? Don't forget. Let's say, for example, I'll take my country, and for some people who might not know yet, and we're way too in this podcast. I'm from Albania, right? It's not a country that is known for too many good things. It's highly corrupted, of course. We have beautiful, beautiful cities, beautiful surroundings, like historical places and everything. But when it comes to business, it's more like either the government is going to want a big piece of it, depending what you're trying to start. But also, it really depends what kind of business you're starting. Like I remember a couple of years back, I was thinking, I was like, oh yeah, bringing this, electric scooters to Albania would be a nice thing. But then I thought of it, I was like, probably 80% of the country or 90% of the country don't operate with credit cards or debit cards. Everybody operates in cash.
Wow.
So now, how are we going to make a scooter? Insert cash in it and ride it and do. I was like, I don't know. I don't think this is going to work. Well, I might have been wrong, right? It might work some point, sometime in the future, or probably it's working. I don't know. But I know for sure one outcome is there. Once I go in Albania and I start a business, which I hope I'm never going back, the government is going to want a piece of it.
You
And you
think
can't
so?
make good money unless it's 100%. You can't make good
Yeah.
money unless the government asks for a piece of it. And not only mentioning, if you pay taxes, most companies, for example, when they pay taxes, there's a tax return kind of season. They get a certain percent of the taxes back when
Hmm.
the companies file tax
Yep.
returns. Ben, you file for tax returns, you're most likely not going to get it back unless you pay off some people and then get your money back, right? So it's. I really think depends also where you're starting in. When we speak for something like a country like Germany or the UK or France or Switzerland or whatever, it might be easier to start something. Especially Germany. Let's say I know there was a company. I think in 2018, they received 500 million euros in backing in their Series A. I think about indoor farming.
Either
And
form.
let's not forget. Yeah, and not, let's not forget Germany is a very very uh, big country, obviously, but they're only also depend on agriculture quite a lot. They have machinery, they have tourism, import export of a lot of things.
Hmm.
But agriculture is a big thing there. So you see, $500 million, million euros, sorry, for a company in Germany. It's not that bad when you think of it, right? When it comes to the amount of of companies that are built there on a daily basis or whatever. And also there's one thing about Europe, I think in general that probably mostly Europeans might know is
What?
that big companies are mainly run generationally. So right, so like if you see a big company in Europe or across Europe, most likely is being owned by the great grandson of the guy who ever started back in the
Yeah.
1800s or 1900s, right? So that's one thing. Whereas here, I guess Silicon Valley and the US in general, the benefit is that anybody can come in. You and I are here. You and I can start a business tomorrow and go seek for financial backing. And most likely we can get that financial backing no
Hmm.
matter where we are from.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
But I also think that here you just push too much, as we said before, and that growth this, growth that, get
Well,
bigger, faster, sooner, adapt faster, do this faster,
yeah.
which can make or break a company.
But you made a good point there. I think Europe's still very close minded. And
Very.
yeah, so young people like you and me are gonna have it. It's gonna be harder for us to start something there and get funding. As of and if you look at Silicon Valley, that barrier goes away. Not
Yep.
100%, but you know,
To a certain extent, yeah.
yeah. And um, taking what you just said aside, it's a pretty cool place to chase your dreams here, and because everyone
Yeah,
is doing
100%.
it. And if you look at
Absolutely.
LA, people go there also to chase their dreams, but in a different way, to become actors and actresses
Yeah.
and do their movies. But and here is to change the world. So mhm.
Well, I guess something in Silicon Valley is people are willing to change the world, but they rather do it in a better way. I mean, I hope the next, let's say, branch or whatever of people, entrepreneurs, who try to develop a breakthrough company does it in a way that don't violate people's privacy. I hope so. I mean,
Yeah,
to be very honest, I mean, because I think all these companies who now are in Silicon Valley and are going through all these antitrust laws and etc.
yeah.
A lot of it is because they got access to an amount of data that they didn't know what to do with, that they weren't willing to get probably in the first place. So I think probably the next branch of companies are really going to focus highly on how can we
Well,
make it better for the customer, not just for ourselves, and make sure that they're protected and not, like afraid to allow
yeah.
whatever
Well,
what might happen.
they kind of have to too, because now with the CCPA, which is
Yeah,
the equivalent to GDPR in Europe, uh, yeah, they have to kind of adapt to it. Otherwise,
100%.
they
And
die,
that's the
right?
nice thing about Europe, right? Like they were so focused on also trying to protect their people in a way with suing Google, suing Facebook, suing this, suing that when it comes to data privacy and data being collected for European users. Because honestly, listen, like one day I was thinking, I was like, it would be nice if Europe, somebody in Germany or somebody in the UK or wherever, starts a Facebook, right? Because if we look, for example, at China, they have their own, like WeChat, this and that, their own like companies just for them,
Hmm.
and they kind of push away. There's a high barrier about Facebook and Google and all this. It would be nice for Europe to do something like that. But then when you think of it on the other side, it's like then the whole world is gonna become divided in a way
Hmm.
because there's that friction of adapting a new technology that is similar to the previous. So why should I go to a new one,
Yeah.
right? So I think it might create friction, but it wouldn't be bad to see because I mean, I guess they will have better laws and better regulations, but also it can be a very, very negative thing that can lead to, I don't know, to not good, to worse events, I guess, when it comes to political things, which I hope we don't go into.
No,
Um,
hopefully
yeah.
not. Yeah.
So yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's my take on it. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. I think the world is going towards nationalism,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's become more. Yeah, what you said. Every country goes to a different direction. So yeah.
Hmm.
Well, so we had a great talk today.
That was amazing.
That
It
was
was
that was
amazing.
that was great. Yeah. Well, Dennis, thanks for coming
Oh,
and
thank you for
talking.
having me, Roger. This was fun. I
Yeah.
enjoyed it. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Well, I think it started with an idea, right? And
Yeah.
then it kind of went into like a lot of testing. We spent years going back and forth on like patents. We have IP pending on all the technology. Um, and, then we started experimenting with platforms and going to events until we got it right. And, do we have it right now? Probably not. Still, it's going to change, right? But I think that, you just kind of keep iterating and you keep generating more ideas on what people want to see, and you take the feedback from people and you try to make it into something that everybody understands.